I'm concerned about my child being on grade level.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Lots and lots of moms are nervous about that. Um, I'll just share one experience. I taught in the public school system for a couple of years, fifth and sixth grade. And in my sixth grade class of 38 kids, at any given moment, if you were to, give them all a test in math and language arts and social studies, history, whatever, just take your pick of subjects and give them a test to see if they were on grade level. There's no way that they would ever all be on grade level in all of the subjects. Now, I don't know why that had never dawned on me until I was teaching school, became keenly aware of that, right? For some reason, we have this thought as a student in that we're all just on the same page all the time. We're just all on grade level, moving along, as we but it just doesn't happen because there are things happening in students' lives and their development is different developmentally, and they're just not ready for some things. And so it becomes nigh unto impossible to have everybody on grade level in every subject at the same time. Therefore, we don't need to worry about that. For sure, there's going to be a kid in your homeschool that just loves, for example, you loves things like sprinklers. And so because of that, you're going to be way ahead with fractions and mathematical thinking and things like that, because you're looking at quarter heads and half heads and whole heads and measurement and things like that, right? And then, your sister who was like, no, don't give me any of that number stuff. If it has a lot of words, I'm okay. But if it has a lot of numbers, no. It just, every kid is in a different place. So not on grade level can be way ahead or it can be behind as well, right? And, yes, there's value in knowing that, especially if you want to, your end goal is to enter college early. But even with that, if your child is really excited about history, man, let them run with that because then they're unstoppable, right? Eventually, if you study history long enough, you're going to have to study about some mathematical things and some, language arts kinds of things. Things will come into play with music and history and things like that. That it just works into it, right?
Yeah.
And famous people, biographies, all of that comes into play, and so it all evens out in the end.
Again, going to the comparison with my older sister and me, she loved words. She started reading at what age? Standard,
Yeah,
basic,
5,
5, 6,
6.
somewhere right in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then was, chewing through books nonstop, come home from the library with a giant pile and she'd blow through that in a matter of days.
Mm-hmm.
Time to go back to the library, and then there's me who, enjoyed hearing the written word as someone would read it out loud to me, but, just decided that reading was not high on my priority list necessarily.
Yeah.
And really despise, worksheets or anything, that was going to help me with that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. So I didn't learn to read until age 11.
Yeah, almost
Around
11.
there.
Yeah.
So, by the standards, that was so far behind and, big trouble, problem,
Right.
But, yeah, to your point, on the flip side, yeah, I was learning a whole bunch of numbers and math and fractions and stuff that my sister actually, even though she completed the worksheet, it wasn't sticking in her mind
Yeah.
like it was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, eventually, I got to a point where I needed more information and I couldn't get it without learning how to read. And so I learned how to read.
Yeah. Yes. We've talked many times, haven't we, about how did you learn how to read?
Yes.
Which we're not exactly sure how that
We're
happened.
not.
I mean, you said that you listened to, some of the sounds of letters when I would be doing it with Melanie, the older sister, but there really was never a sit down and here, let's learn how to read. We just did those basic, vowel sounds, and then the book that you just had to know what was in it, or reading out loud too, and you stop in a little, as I recall, like a Boxcar Children, you stop in a very, mysterious part. That's all the time we have today. And the kid just has to know, what the next part is.
Yes.
And that's a good technique to use, but it works out. It really does work out. Boys in particular are not that jazzed about reading at an early age. So, you might have a son that is, but generally speaking, they're not that thrilled about sitting down and doing the worksheets or anything. Girls tend to be a little more willing to do that. Boys, no, boys love the project, it's just like all this stuff. How does it all work together, to create this project? They just love that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, that fits, right? They spend a lot of their lives trying to figure out projects, whether it's at work or at home or with a family or whatever, right? And so it fits really well with what they're going to do in the future. And we ought not to squelch that. We ought to just work with it.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and I think it goes back to kind of what we were saying, their social skills. So long as you're, as the parent, actively providing, projects and, opportunities of learning,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to learn.
Yeah.
They're going to learn at their own pace and at the things they're interested in. But, again, we'll take me as an example. I vividly remember math time, right? And the math sheets would come out. But the best news was the math blocks that you were supposed to use to, take this block away and you have how many now and, add this one. And,
Right.
And they were different sizes for different numbers. The 10 block was long. Loved the 100 blocks because they were big and square. But I could care less about the hundreds and the tens and the ones and the twos. Let me build a building with these blocks that stacked and locked together. Super cool, That's what the math blocks were good for, in my mind.
Right.
And somehow managed to learn math. In fact, learned it faster than, my older sister, who was technically ahead of me,
Right.
So.
Yeah. We just can never estimate exactly what's being learned, right? Just provide those opportunities. I should say about the grade level thing as well, to help with the outside people that are looking in or working with you, for example, in Cub Scout groups or at church or things like that. Classes that you were involved with, you in particular, but this would be for any kid. If you do yourself and other people a favor to have open communication with them about, hey, we're aware that he's not reading and he's 9, 10, whatever. So feel free to invite him to read. And if he wants to try it, great. Let him give it a shot. But don't be surprised if he doesn't want to, because it might be embarrassing to him or something like that. But give him the opportunity. If he wants to give it a try, great. If he needs your help, great. But that will kind of break down those barriers of, oh, they're not teaching things that they should be teaching, at this age, because that is part of it, right? That's part of how we model good social skills too, is by this open communication with people who are working with our children, so that they know, hey, we're aware of the situation. So it puts their minds at ease. And then it also saves your child some embarrassment too, when, the teacher can kind of step in if it's hard for them, or back off completely if they don't want to do it.
Yeah.